building that is engulfing the Middle East. Let's get an update from Beirut.
All around here are large residential blocks. How would you describe this area? Because you're hearing the Israeli military are saying they were specifically targeting Hezbollah infrastructure, command and control centers.
I want to tell all people, all world, this world will tell us that there is Hezbollah here and Hezbollah here. In Beirut, there's no Hezbollah. As we are a child of Beirut, we are not Hezbollah. And we're not including for Hezbollah. And we're not with Hezbollah.
Well, they clearly are
And
some
if
Hezbollah
now-
elements
if
in the
now-
capital
if
city.
If now they tell me that there's a Jewish people here and he needs our help, we will help him. Our message is peace and humanity. But what happened here yesterday, this area, it's food and beverage containers. And as we know, as we see, it's for a closed container. There's no military here. Beirut, Beirut, it's under community, under government. Yeah. But don't take this big for war that Hezbollah and Beirut. No, Hezbollah is not in Beirut. Hezbollah and Ansos.
It's just targeted kids, babies.
Yeah, what we see yesterday,
Literally kids and babies.
and old men, old women, old people was grilled.
And as you
Do you think people don't care as much about Lebanon as they did about Gaza? Do you think people don't care as much about the West Bank as they do about Gaza? I'm reminded there with the gentleman saying that there's no Hezbollah here, but we have been attacked. There's no Hamas in the West Bank, and the West Bank was attacked, or at least Hamas don't control the West Bank. It's in the hands of Fatah. Let's touch upon the subject of anti-Semitism, and it's being reported that anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. It's on the rise, it's on the increase. Is that anything to do with the war and the attacks on Gaza and on Lebanon? It definitely wouldn't justify it. Nothing justifies anti-Semitism, but would it explain it? And Kanye West, who's a very famous anti-Semite, there's talk of banning him from the UK. Let's hear what Nigel Farage has got to say about it. Isn't it funny? Let's have a listen to Nigel.
I think that for myself, I wouldn't buy a ticket. I wouldn't recommend anyone buys a ticket. I think his comments are vile, really vile. The sort of rabbit hole of anti-Semitism,
If you're new to the
Nazism
channel,
that he's
a
gone
warm
down is
welcome to
vile.
you.
But I think if we start banning people from entering the country because we don't like what they say, I worry where that ends up. I mean, if Keir Starmer was to ban people coming into Britain with whose views he doesn't like, almost nobody would be allowed in. So I think it's a dangerous path to go down. I suspect, Ross, the answer to this is the free market will sort this out. In that sponsors are withdrawing already, the festival itself is threatened, and I suspect very few people will buy tickets. I suspect the free market will sort this out, but I'm not.
I don't agree with Nigel Farage on many things, but he's talking about freedom of speech there. And is he a freedom of speech absolutist? I agree with freedom of speech. There's a point that was raised by Julia Hartley Brewer on LBC. She thinks that Kanye West gets away with his anti-Semitism because he's black.
I'm sorry, he gets a free pass because he's black. Let's be honest about this. If he was a white man saying this about black people, we've had the same thing even like P. Diddy at the court case against him. When they had the Me Too movement, a lot of black abusers got a free pass, and they got a free pass because on the left, if you're black or and gay men as well, if you're black or gay, you're somehow down the bottom of the, you're vulnerable. You're one of the downtrodden, even if you're a multi-millionaire rapper, rather than what you're an oppressed, not an oppressor. He got a free pass for this stuff. If he'd misgendered a Jew, then they'd want him cancelled.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, we need to call it out what it is. I don't think the rules should be different. If they want to have rules, the same people who love the wireless festivals, all music festivals, all lefty. If you don't want an actor to go on the stage because it's a woman who believes, funnily enough, that no women has a penis, then I'm sorry, you don't, you want your cancellation rules, you get your cancellation rules. And I'm pretty sure the Nazi swastika on a t-shirt and a swastika put over a Star of David, I'm pretty sure that should get you cancelled too. Or we don't cancel anybody.
Yeah.
But let's have consistency.
No, I think that's totally fair. And I think
Do you think Julia Hartley Brewer has a point? He's mentally ill, though, isn't he? Whether he's black or white, isn't he mentally ill? And he's apologized. That's interesting that she made the point that, if he'd misgendered someone, then he would be cancelled. So we're seeing her reveal her prejudices here. I believe Julia Hartley Brewer is an Israel supporter, but she's not a supporter of gender ideology or LGBTQ rights, it would seem. So she's picking and choosing what she thinks would get other people cancelled. And she said the other alternative is that we just don't cancel anyone. It's a good thought experiment, isn't it? What would it be like if we genuinely had complete freedom of speech and you could say absolutely anything? You can't shout fire in a cinema. Let's get back to the war. I know anti-Semitism is a big topic and it's interlinked. There's a Israeli spy in this video, former US Navy intelligence Jonathan Pollard. He was an Israeli spy, if I'm correct. Let's get his take on the tensions in the Middle East. And we've got Mohammad Reza Bagheri, who is an Iranian. Salam Khobi Chetori, Khayli Mamnoon. Great to have you here, Mohammad Reza. I mean, you could only be an Iranian, couldn't you, with a name like that, Mohammad Reza. The last Shah of Iran was Shah Reza.
Put Iran back into the Stone Age.
how would they do that? What are you suggesting?
Well, I've written quite a bit openly here about what we should do. The first thing is an electromagnetic pulse strike across Iran.
What about the
That's
people
number
of Iran? I mean, it's not like I think this differs from Gaza, if you will. Yes, the Iranian regime is completely responsible as the key main sponsor of terror. They are responsible for every terrorist event, as far as I'm concerned, that's happened. They are directly responsible for Gaza. They are responsible for the Houthis. They are responsible for Hezbollah, and they are responsible for the protests that are in
100%.
the streets of America.
We seem to have completely forgotten about ISIS or Daesh, whatever you want to call them. They're off the map now. It's all about the Houthis and other factions.
But
And
the
Canada.
people and don't even get me
I
started.
have-
Don't even
I
get
have
me
brothers-
started, Jonathan.
I have brothers-in-law, Esther's brothers, that keep me very well apprised of the insanity that's going on in
Insanity
Canada.
is right. That's not even a word. I don't even know what word I could use, but we can talk about that. Let's talk. But I want to ask you.
No, wait. You just raised a very, very important question. And we should spend at least a minute discussing it.
Sure. I want to know.
Yes.
I want to know
Here
about
are-
the Iranian people. The Iranian people in this instance, I don't believe that they are synonymous with the Iranian regime. And what I'm worried about, what makes complex over here in this military action, is that I don't believe we can afford the decimation of the civilian. Why should they pay? We
You
should
know what?
be affecting change.
And you know what? The IRGC knows that as well. Now, if the enemy understands that there are limits past which we will not go, they've won.
So you think it's cause rationale for another Japanese response?
Yeah. There were a lot of innocent Germans and Japanese killed during the Second World War. Why? Because the death of their respective regimes was more important to the future of the free world than it was their lives.
Jonathan, I've got a real moral problem with this, and it's okay. I mean, I agree, but I have to tell you that I have a real moral problem. I don't think we can ever go there again. Personally, I don't think we can ever go there again. And I think, especially in this case, the Iranian people deserve our support. They deserve our protection, and we have to find another way.
Find another way. Jonathan Pollard arguing for another Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The horrific, disproportionate, not necessary war crimes that were committed at the end of World War II.
The
Let's
Strait
go
of
to Fox
Hormuz
News.
not only has to be open, it can never be controlled again by Iran. All the 60% uranium has to be taken out of Iran. There can't be 1 ounce of this 60% grade uranium left in Iran. That would be a bad outcome. They could make a dirty bomb or one day enrich to 90%. So my goal is to get it right. I'd prefer diplomacy, but if we have to use military force, we're going to do it. I'm very optimistic that President Trump's going to bring this regime to an end one way or the other. I prefer diplomacy, but this time tomorrow night, they're either going to do a deal that makes sense for the world and the region and for Iran itself, or we're going to blow them up. This time tomorrow night, we're going to have one of two scenarios: capitulation of their desire to rain terror on the world through diplomacy, or we're going to have a massive military attack destroying this regime's capability to ever wage war again.
Mohammed Reza, they're now openly talking about their G side. Even Trump mentioned it, didn't he? He threatened and said, tonight, a whole civilization is at risk. He used genocidal language. Let's hear a bit from Piers Morgan.
Well, I'm afraid Jews are being killed in this country, and they're not.
So we're back onto the anti-Semitism topic in light of Kanye.
Being killed by rappers. Jews are absolutely under threat. Only this month or last month, we had in London Jewish ambulances being firebombed, not by rappers. We have a community in the majority of whom think Jews have too much power in this country. We have a community in Britain, about half of whom think Hamas are good and support Hamas. And they are not the rapper community.
Okay.
Now, the reason I bring this up is
Well,
because
let me
if you
hold you
really
on one
care...
point. Okay, you made one point.
Yeah,
you made one point there, which is you talk about Jews have too much power. That was precisely an argument repeated by Kanye when he was trying to justify what he was saying. He repeatedly said that in the music business, people at the top are all Jewish, they've all got too much power, they punish artists like him and so on. That was one of his key arguments. He has 33 million followers on X, for example, right? So my point being, I will let you finish your point, but my point being on that issue,
33.
the influence of somebody like him cannot be understated. It certainly can't be ignored. If a guy with 33 million followers is saying repeatedly, Jews have too much power, Jews are all the tropes that go with all the other stuff he was doing, it has through. So when you say all this stuff is going on, it's got nothing to do with rappers, I say, well, let's not be too hasty in assuming that. This stuff filters down. Kanye has enormous influence.
Yeah, okay. So
Did you accept that?
let's take them as two separate issues. There is a serious anti-Semitism problem, and we all know where it's coming from. It's not coming from rappers. And I don't believe
But how do you know?
is actually doing
How do you know
anything
they
about
aren't fueling it?
Because it's specifically an Islam problem.
Okay, but when you have somebody like him adding fuel to the fire in the way he's been doing,
so
how do you know he's not influencing people to think, actually, yeah, he's right. You know, Jews have too much power.
He could be influencing people. But let's start with the basics. This is one of the greatest, if not the greatest musician of our generation. He's won something like 24 Grammys. Again and again and again, he came up with absolute mega hits. They're all awesome. Some of them are pretty provocative. And he's also a guy who is unwell. He said lots of contradictory things. Even in his song, N-word, Heil Hitler, Hallelujah, those three things are not compatible with each other. In fact, in the song, how he's a cuck. Like this is a, you've got to take this for what it is. It's not clear to easily define what Kanye-ism is.
Should somebody
the
who
philosophy
sells
of Kanye-ism.
should a rapper who sells merchandise with swastikas on it, should that person be welcomed
But
back to run a
Kanye has
music festival?
apologized. He did a massive apology in the
Okay.
Wall Street Journal.
He had to apologize.
Yeah, he's
And
done a
then he
big
had to
apology. Not
pedal
only
back.
that, he said he'd love to meet members of the Jewish community when in England. Wouldn't that be
But he
great?
took 4 times that he said sorry, he went back to it. Sorry, Heil Hitler. Sorry, swastika merchandise. Sorry, DEFCON 3 on Jews. Like, there's a pattern here, and the guy is clearly doesn't mean it when he says he's sorry.
That's subjective, right? You don't believe it.
I mean, it's a pattern, and when 4 times, if he did it twice, and then maybe we could have a conversation.
This is not a political rally. This is a music concert. I bet you.
You've no
the
idea
vast
what he might say
majority-
when he gets on stage.
You don't know what he's going to say on stage. And maybe you could say, Kanye, you can come, but these are the terms.
This guy seems very keen to forgive Kanye West for his anti-Semitism while peddling the line that there's a huge problem of anti-Semitism in this country and it's coming from Islam. He doesn't explain what he means. He doesn't expand upon that. Although he did mention, sadly, the terror attack, and we now know the names of the culprits, and they would, apart from one of them who is under 18, and they would appear to be British citizens with Muslim sounding names. So it wasn't what a lot of people thought was an inside job that was being theorized about. So yes, there was an anti-Semitic attack on ambulances. Apparently, there was a synagogue right next door, and these anti-Semites with Muslim names attacked the ambulances. I don't know. I'm just looking at the facts as they unfold. If someone else has got a better theory about what happened, please let me know. Mohammed Reza is saying, as Iranian, I'm proud my nation is bringing Stein regime to its knee. Okay. I wonder, where are you, Mohammed Reza? I know that not everyone in Iran at the moment has the internet, but if you're messaging us from Iran or wherever you're messaging us from, you're very welcome. Captain is saying the world ignored what was happening for so long, which was a massacre, 1984. I don't know if you're talking about or about something that happened in 1984. When was the Amritsar massacre? Was that 1984? I need to brush up on my history. Shall we hear from Carl Tuckerson? Here he is.
May I ask you to stop for a second? I'm ashamed by my ignorance, as usual. The Israeli military bombed St. Peter's burial site?
Yes.
When?
Yes, they did. Yeah. This was back in 2024. I mean, they went to. This wasn't an accidental bombing. The Shemoneh Safar. I think it's protected under World Heritage law as well. And it's a very important site. It's of course, the burial place of St. Peter. It's also a holy site for Muslims. And what they did during that period was they brought an Israeli, what they call a researcher. The Israeli Defense Force brought him in, and the purpose of that really was to, I guess, reinvent history and the aim of it was to say, well, this is a Jewish holy site, and this land belongs to Israel. This was the kind of narrative that they were trying to spin. That researcher, who was actually a very well-known settler activist, was killed during that time. So we visited the site in early 2025 after the ceasefire period, and the missiles have gone through the domes. The whole area was destroyed. Bullet marks across all of the buildings there, including the area of the shrine of Saint Peter himself. So this is so it wasn't like accidentally targeted. It wasn't kind of collateral damage. This was a attack on the tomb of Saint Peter. It's not.
And Hezbollah blown up Christian holy sites? Has Hezbollah targeted ambulances? I mean, maybe they have. You live there. You tell me.
No, they haven't. In fact, the opposite. And again, there's plenty of footage of this that people can check for themselves online. But Hezbollah was, in fact, protecting the Christian churches and protecting these kind of symbolic areas of religious importance to Christians. There's footage of them going into churches and cleaning up and tidying up and standing around, protecting the Christian faith. If you listen to the speeches of Hassan Nasrallah, he said the Hezbollah are the main defenders of the Christian faith in Lebanon. So it's so no, they're not destroying ambulances, they're not destroying churches, they're not destroying mosques, they're not destroying people's homes, but Israel is, and it's doing it with American and Western supplied weapons as well.
Because this conflict is sometimes framed, or in a lot of people's minds, it's Islam against the Judeo-Christian values, that there's some kind of alliance between the Jewish state and Christian people. I think Tucker Carlson might have formerly been of that mindset, and he seems to be drifting away from it. But because there is that mentality, there seems to be a pushback, and people on the side of the Palestinians or the side of Iran in this instance, if you want to say that they're on the same side, will almost have to go out of their way to highlight the fact that, as he said, the grave of Saint Peter was destroyed. The third oldest church in the world in Gaza was destroyed. And in the bombing of Iran only this week, a synagogue has been destroyed, a Jewish place of worship. And the hardline evangelists, Christians who support Israel, maybe they're unaware of these facts, but it's ironic that the other side would be able to portray themselves as the protectors of Christians. On this channel, we condemn all terrorist groups, all proscribed groups, all outlawed groups. I just find it interesting to note what the gentleman said about who is claiming to be protecting Christians in the Middle East. And there is a theory among some that there are elements of the Zionist project that would want to rid the Middle East of Christians so that they can launch their attacks on Muslims only. And the numbers of Christians in the Middle East have dwindled, very sadly. And they fled, many to South America and elsewhere. Christine Donnelly is saying Babylon is falling. Well, Babylon was Iraq, wasn't it? But Babylon is also used to refer to a great enemy. The kingdom of Israel was surrounded by Babylon, or Babylon, the enemy to the east. Christine saying people being used by governments. Definitely. Let's get a couple more clips on for you. We've got an Israeli spokesperson. Why not have a listen?
The death toll in Lebanon has reportedly now exceeded 1,500. That's more than the number of Israelis killed on October the 7th. A million.
I don't know where you got this number, but maybe you can let me know how many of those people are Hezbollah terrorists. Because we actually.
Well, you tell me.
So I think most of them. I tell you why. Because we asked.
Would you know how many? Do you know how many?
I will tell you that most of them, and I tell you why. Because we asked the population to move out north of the Litani River, and they did. It wasn't easy for them, but the population moved to the north. So actually, the one who stayed in southern Lebanon are Hezbollah terrorists. So I would estimate that most of the numbers you just quoted are Hezbollah terrorists.
Well, Lebanese authorities estimate that 250 are women and children. Would you dispute that?
I have no knowledge of that number, but I can tell you that the fact that people move to the north, it saved their lives, and we encourage them to stay up north until
But out
we
of
finish the
interest,
job.
Danny, out of interest, why is it that Israel always knows exactly how many enemy combatants you've killed? You never know how many civilians you've killed.
No, I don't know to answer both questions. You know, it's hard for us to know.
No, but you told me most of the dead are Hezbollah. The Lebanese authorities say 250 are women and children. You're now saying you don't know, but at the same time you're telling me most of them are Hezbollah. Well, how can those two...
Actually, the numbers you just presented prove my case. If it's 250 civilians, and we regret the loss of life of
Well,
every
250
civilian.
women and children, to be specific.
Let's make it clear. We regret the loss of life of every civilian.
So Piers Morgan making some good points. Some people can't forgive Piers Morgan for his silence early on in what was happening. But as George Galloway likes to say, a stopped clock is right twice a day. Piers Morgan, who, as he often mentions, was right about the Iraq war. In the chat, Lord's Champion is making a very important point on the topic of conflict and war. And he's asking me, hi, are you playing the new Pokemon game? Haven't got round to it yet, Lord's Champion. I'm a bit old for Pokemon. I was a bit old for it the first time it came round, about 25 years ago. And lo and behold, it's come round again. History repeats itself. There's nothing new under the sun. Willie Francis is saying America should find ways to protect and defend Christianity to bring sustained peace and stability. Yeah, do the Americans owe the Christians of the Middle East, where Christianity first began, where Aramaic, the language of Jesus, is still spoken, do they owe them anything? Is there this concept that there is in Islam, that if one part of the Ummah is in pain, the whole Ummah is in pain? Or do American Christians not really, do they not think like that? For them, is being Christian more about being a white European, maybe, for example? We is saying no war. I agree with that. No war. Something we can all get behind. Breaking news. Artemis moon mission will be splashing down in 25 minutes. Oh, brilliant. Maybe we can share the moment live. Those of us that believe it, do you believe in the moon landing? Well, it wasn't a moon landing this time, was it? It was a moon flying around the back of the moon and seeing the dark side of the moon. Great album. Let's hear some of the Iranian opposition.
Stand today. I want to bring in CBS News contributor Masih Alinejad. She's also an Iranian journalist and women's rights activist. What is the mood in Iran right now?
That's a good question, because the ceasefire, everyone talking across the globe, it's not a real ceasefire in Iran, because right now that we're speaking, the nation are in a total internet blackout. So some of the activists and dissidents that I have been in touch with them through Starting, to be honest, they're nervous. Of course, nobody wanted to be bombed. Nobody wanted to get killed. But at the same time, now they are telling me that the entire, family members of these people that I talk to them, they said they're nervous because they feel like a wounded regime is like a wounded animal. The Islamic Republic, a terrorist regime, doesn't mean that they are safe. It's more dangerous to the people, to innocent, unarmed people. And let me tell you that why I say that this is not a real ceasefire in Iran, because the head of judiciary system, Mohseni Ejei, just today, after the ceasefire, he said that the regime should speed up the executions. Only last week, they hanged 11 protesters. So this is the regime that we are talking. When they see that the whole world is, talking about the regime change, my people are shocked when President Trump and his entire team saying that they did a regime change. What kind of regime change? The regime is still in power. They just replaced one Khamenei with another Khamenei. Ghalibaf, the head of parliament, is the one, the architect of a massacre. Pezeshkian, under Pezeshkian, more than 40,000 people have been massacred under Masoud Pezeshkian.
So when President Trump says that the current regime appears to be less radical, that is not something that you believe?
At all. You cannot find a less radical leaders. Killing is in the DNA of this regime. And let's be very clear. I want to talk the same language that President Trump always say. When you talk about regime change, this is a fake regime change. There is nothing has changed under this regime. You call them reasonable. Iranians call them killers, murderers.
But as we just said, the Times reported that President wasn't guaranteed regime change with this operation, but
this
was
is what he's
guaranteed.
saying.
Yes, we can likely kill the Ayatollah, but not necessarily change regime. So even going into Operation Epic Fury, it wasn't a guarantee that there would be a regime change.
Of course, but this is what they are saying right now. They're selling this to everyone, saying that we did a regime change.
Who's they? President Trump?
President Trump, Hexet, he said that recently that previous regime, new regime. There is no such thing. This is the Islamic Republic, cannot be reformed. Once President Obama and President Biden called them reformist, pragmatic, moderate. What have you achieved in the United States? Nothing. You just give them time by calling them reasonable or moderate to rebuild their machinery weapons, to take revenge on Arab countries, in the region, and also take revenge on their own people.
Okay. Well, Masih Alinejad, we'll have to leave it there today, but we look forward to talking to you again. Thank
We-
you.
Thank you so much for
We
having
will
me.
have to leave it there. Remember when Donald Trump was saying, right, now go out into the streets and take over the country? Did he think it would be that simple, that if you took out one Ayatollah, another Ayatollah wouldn't pop up like whack-a-mole? The regime was so well prepared that they have many plans for who's next in line. Contingency plan, is that the word? It's going to take more than just an assassination to get regime change, if that's what you want. But is that what they really want? That's what the opposition want, of course. That's why they're called the opposition. They oppose the government. But would getting rid of the uranium, ensuring that they don't have a nuclear weapons plan, would a weak Islamic Republic of Iran suit the likes of Donald Trump and Netanyahu, if that's who also wanted this war? Would a weak Islamic Republic of Iran that still treats its people the same as it does now, with the same problems of execution and oppression, would that be enough for Donald Trump? And then would these people in opposition regret the fact that they've cheerleaded a war against their own country that took the lives of people, whether they are for or against the regime? I wonder, would they regret that? But we must remember that there was an internet blackout. in the country. And I think the only people that could get onto the internet in Iran have what's known as a white SIM card. So possibly the regime controlling which voices are able to have their say and communicate with the outside world. Sain is saying, lol, regime change. Yeah, we can all have a good laugh at that. Donnell is saying, we don't need their oil. Well, that's another theory. Does the fact that Donald Trump now has Venezuela's oil, little Venice, does he not really want the Straits of Hormuz to be opened? If he did, he wouldn't have started this war. I think America was involved in changing the regime in Bangladesh, Nepal, using public sentiment, and they were successful. So they thought it would be the same in Iran too. Was there a regime change in Bangladesh? I didn't know that. Pukar Thapa. Thapa, okay, I'm guessing that you're Nepalese. Thapa is a very Nepalese name, and namaskar to you. Dandebad. Iranian Americans can't wait to be free to return home to visit or stay. How difficult is it for an Iranian American to visit Iran as things stand? I would genuinely like to know what stands in the way. Are they going to be rounded up and have to serve military service? Is it one of those sort of things? Some people that leave their country and they miss the military service, they can't go back because they'll have to be conscripted into the army if they do so. Eli Hariel says Venezuela is mostly crude oil, which isn't as useful to the US. Still does desperately need Strait to open. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought that all kinds of oil were crude oil. What's the difference? I'm not really an oily guy, if you know what I mean. Papa is saying it's not a war, it's a conflict. It's a military operation. Y'all dumbasses keep saying it's a war. Stop it. Well, I know America never liked to call it a war when they're losing. Vietnam was a military operation, wasn't it? And they got their asses kicked. Captain is saying there's no profit about this war. Innocent people losing their lives. Well, there's profit for people that sell weapons, isn't there? And Sain is saying, take control. There's no war. So we've heard from the Iranian opposition. Let's hear from the other side now. Our friend, the professor.
And just, I know you're about out of time here. Last question. In the event that that does happen, that President Trump doesn't listen to anybody, he does launch some sort of a big attack against energy infrastructure, and Iran does what you suggested they're going to, and just starts methodically taking down all of this, and it has the impact you had, then there will come one of the things that I've feared the most from the beginning here is that faced with a disaster, President Trump may then resort to one more escalation of a nuclear weapon to try and bring Iran to the heel, just like they did with Japan in 1945. What would happen in that case? Because literally, Tehran could be vaporized. Is there any concern about that on the Iranian side?
Well, it just shows how sinister the regime in Washington is. It just shows how sinister Zionism is. It just shows the world what the reality of Zionism is. That is what you're talking about, the essence of Zionism, something that no one would even contemplate. No one like you or me would contemplate hurting a child. Yet for Netanyahu, for the Zionists, for Trump, and for the Israeli firsters in the White House and in Washington, massacring and sending people back to the Stone Age is normal. That's why the New York Times doesn't react to any of this language, because that's normal for them. Because they see the rest of the world like the Zionists do, like we're all Amalek. And for me, you know, you probably heard, I have a bounty on my head right now. I'd prefer to die standing than to die on my knees. And those people on the streets, when the United States and Israelis fire missiles at these rallies, I published footage of them. People can go back a few weeks ago. There was a famous rally where a young woman was talking about why people are steadfast, why they're chanting God is great, and then that's when they fired a missile. And the crowd did exactly what she said. They didn't run. They didn't stampede. And she continued speaking. You would think that this would be the top news story across the Western world. And this young PhD student at the University of Tehran, she would be invited on all the Western media channels. But she was nowhere because the Western media censored her, because they do not want to show all these young Iranian women and young men on the streets unfazed, unwilling to stampede and run away, because then it becomes clear that this woman doesn't need liberating. This woman is the one who can liberate those who are under the spell of the Zionist lobby and the Israeli regime.
Professor Mamdani. Wild Dog Media saying only Congress can declare war in the US. The use of war is media and propaganda. That's interesting. So this has not been declared by the Congress. They haven't voted on it. So I suppose it has to be democratically decided upon. The fact that what is it then? It's just, it's an attack. It's a military operation. And Trump has done it when he's got no election that he needs to win. This is his final second term. He had a break in between. And he's got nothing to, you could say nothing to prove, nothing to play for. But for some reason, he has launched this war. Some of the people in the opposition, Iranian opposition, would like to think that it was because he cared about the human rights in Iran. But it looks like he's going to be willing to settle for a weakened paper tiger, is that the term? Islamic Republic with a different Ayatollah who has the same beliefs but doesn't have uranium. So I wonder, will they regret that? Eli Hariel is being very kind and saying, I love this style of discourse you're having. Keep it going. Thank you very much, Eli. Any of you watching, if you're enjoying this, you know what to do, and we'll do it all again. Another night, I will put the phone number up and I will get people calling and we'll have real freedom of speech. Tonight, it's been a bit of a lecture. Sorry about that. Al Hassan Bari is saying, do you think Donald J. Trump is a lunatic? Quite frankly, I don't care if he's a lunatic or not. I'm lunatic. Where do we get the word lunatic from? It comes from the moon, la lune, someone that's gone mental, because the moon actually affects your mind, doesn't it? Do I think Donald Trump is being affected by the moon? There's definitely something controlling him, someone, but not, I don't think it's the moon. Have you been, this is from Chris Sack, have you been in the streets of Tehran? The Iranian people are taking out the IRGC city by city. In Iran, people connected to Starlink can send on internet, so some video is available. Yes, it is, Chris, but there's some very positive footage, as in positive towards the regime footage coming out from Iran, and I would only imagine that that's footage that the regime approves of. But if you've got some other footage, I did see a very sad video of a gentleman blindfolded who it seemed was about to be executed, and they were asking him how he wanted to be remembered, and he said, oh, have a party, I don't want people to be sad. I don't know why he was being executed, but I don't approve of that capital punishment. Just my view. Lube is saying this is going to become an EU problem. Well, a world war would be a world problem, wouldn't it? And the EU is in the world. Captain is saying, you're talking to yourself here, I'm sorry, but nowadays nobody cares about other people's opinions. Mainstream media and algorithms are engaging in social engineering and manipulating perceptions. Well, the algorithm for most people will just regurgitate what you already think. My algorithm will look different to your algorithm. The algorithm on social media shows you things that you will like to watch for a long time. It's shown a few of you my video tonight. God bless you all. And it will show you things that it thinks you want to buy. So when I scroll through my Instagram reels, I see lots of clips of jiu-jitsu, people doing jiu-jitsu. And for some reason, I get lots of adverts for women's underwear, but I've got no intention of buying any. So I don't know. There's a glitch in the algorithm. But yes, generally, it's designed to show you what it thinks you want to invest in. Remember, if something is free, you are the product. And we are coming at you live tonight, free of charge. But as I say, I'd love it if you click on the
rules-based international order.
The current rules-based order. Rules-based world order.
The rules-based order will be defended.
Rules-based order?
In a rules-based global order.
To uphold the rules-based international order.
Undermines a rules-based international order.
The rules-based international order.
For the international rules-based order.
Yeah, we're all. We've got an independent thinker in the chat. Wild Dog Media. I'm an independent thinker and politics, so I give the algorithm pure hell. Well done. And it was, of course, named after Al-Khwarizmi, the great Islamic mathematician. Eli Hariel is saying, what a cool guy you are. I hope I end up back here. Well, you will, inshallah, if you click on the subscribe button and turn the notification bell on. And then we can all do this again sometime, or we can all go out for dinner. When's good for you? Let's get one more clip from Fox News. Not that I agree with them. Here they are.
We're not doing regime change. Everybody says no regime change. Okay.
No regime change. Listen carefully. We're still attacking, but it's not a regime change, apparently.
Then the regime survives in one form or another. The fundamentals survive. And so the question is, how do we keep this enemy, this poison, this cancer, these Islamist radicals, 7th century barbarians, how do we keep them in a box? And that's what we have to figure out. If we're not going to completely take them out because of the huge isolationist strain in the Democrat Party, among the woke right, but again, MAGA, the Republicans are behind the president. But if we can't do it because of the political wins, if we can't do it because of other reasons, then how are we going to keep them in a box? It can't be just peace in our time. We have a 10-point deal and they've agreed to this. I just think it's going to be very, very complicated, very, very difficult. And I would say this to the President of the United States. I personally know that you will do the right thing, that you're going to try and make sure that it works for now and forever. And so I have complete faith in this man because he's brought us to this point where he's blown out their nuclear systems, where he's taking out or trying to take out all the enrichment, where he is not taking them at their word, where he has used our military in one of the most brilliant, spectacular military campaigns in American history. I'm glad he's there as President of the United States. There's some very complicated and difficult issues on the table. And I think if anyone can handle it, he can handle it. But this enemy, make no mistake, they're the enemy. They're not going to go away if there's not regime change. And we're going to have to figure out, and it's not going to be easy, how to keep our foot on their throat. It's not going to be easy, especially since we change administrations typically every 4 or 8 years. That's it. I'm done. I pray for the president and our troops. I pray for the people in the Middle East. I pray for the people of Persia. And I pray this enemy drops dead.
Interesting. He's referring to it as Persia. We've had that conversation already. But he's also trying to walk back the idea of regime change. And he was blaming the Democrat Party and what he called the woke right. I've got no idea what the woke right are, but he's sort of suggesting that, oh, we would be annihilating them and taking the regime right out if there wasn't resistance to it on the ground in America, among the populace, among the electorate. And I remember hearing a similar comment made about the Vietnam War and how the Americans were winning the war, but they pulled out because there was so much opposition to it at home. And it's not a surprise that there would be opposition to the Vietnam War. And remember that the average age of the combat soldier in America was only 19. Christine saying, God will protect them like he protects us. Can't believe it. Anything right now. Living in the days of deception. I heard Bibi, Christine saying, I heard Bibi is an Ashkenazi Jew, if that means anything. Well, that just means that he's from the Jewish people from Eastern Europe. And I think his original surname was Milkowski. But a lot of these people that went to what became Israel changed their name to have a more Hebrew-sounding name when they made Aliyah. Lubei has got an Israeli flag and saying forever. Okay, maybe. We don't know. Nothing is forever, my friend. Not even this live stream. We've got time for one more clip.
Donald Trump is threatening to strike Iran's power infrastructure and bridges tonight if Iran doesn't reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Would you consider that to be a war crime?
There has not been a single day that has passed in this war with Iran where I have not felt that the Prime Minister has been entirely vindicated for his judgment in keeping Britain out of the war in Iran.
Would you consider it a war crime if Donald Trump were to carry out his threat?
As not my judgment to make, but it's for the US to justify its actions.
Typical politician answer. Seawald Sija is saying, please tell me how I should feel about Israel as a Christian. Well, I can't tell you how to feel, Seawald Sija. Earlier on, we showed a clip that mentioned the grave of St. Peter was destroyed by Israel. How you feel about that, I don't know. It's up to you. What do you mean by Israel? Are you talking about Israel, the name of Jacob? Are you talking about Israel, the country in the Middle East, which we don't actually know the borders of? It's not been defined. So it's very difficult to decide what you think about Israel when we haven't decided what Israel is yet. What do you mean by Israel? Vision is saying Trump had achieved all the objectives except to topple the government and regime change. What were the objectives? To get the Straits of Hormuz shut? I thought he wanted it open, and he was even swearing about it, unless he is being very, very clever. Wild Dog is saying Yeshua is Jewish. Okay. No arguments there. And Muhammad Ali is saying it's Palestine. Look, I'm a Palestine supporter, lifelong Palestine supporter, and I've been lucky enough to visit the country. But I am becoming of the opinion that it doesn't really matter what you call it. Your identity is your identity. As long as you've got justice and freedom in the land, does it matter if I call your country Germany and you call it Deutschland? Does that really matter? Stuart Phillips is saying, are you seeing my posts? This is the first one that I've seen, Stuart. I don't know if... Okay, that's interesting, Stuart. What a different post that you made. I couldn't seem to put it on the screen. And you mentioned the prophet Noah. So I don't know. I try not to censor anything on here, but YouTube does censor. So don't blame me. Doing my best. And Dune Pool has a dream. My dream is just seeing a right-wing movement in the West that doesn't just worship Israel. Okay, Dune Pool, good luck with that. Do we have to be on the wing? Please stop fighting in the name of God, else openly declare which faith world have to follow. That's from Punjab Diamoja. Thank you to you. And the Noahide, this is from Stuart. The Noahide laws are the laws of Noah that the Gentiles must live by. Now, I've heard this term, Noahide laws, but aren't most of the laws from the Old Testament things like don't steal, don't cheat on your wife, don't give false testimony? They're quite positive, universal values, aren't they? So why would it be so bad if we lived by the Noahide laws? It's a bit of a, is it a panic over nothing? I don't know. C. Bond is saying, show me the best president in the world this world has ever seen. Every country would love to have him. Free their country. He succeeded in everything he said he would do. You're full of dung. Well, thank you for not using harsh languages. And Stuart was saying, because Noah is our common paternal grandfather. Yeah, we were saying the other night that if you believe in the literal interpretation of the Bible, then we are all not only descended from Adam and Eve, but descended from when the world got started again, and descended from Noah's sons, and the different languages of the world are related to the names of those children. He is the oldest relative. We should respect his laws. Okay, so it sounds like you agree. Then you don't have a problem with the Noahide laws. But I see that term thrown around by people that I suspect might be a little bit anti-Semitic, because they seem to say things like, "Oh, the Jews want to control us and make us follow the Noahide laws," whereas I'm saying we pretty much all follow them anyway, don't we? If you're a Christian, you believe in the Old Testament, and if you're a Muslim, you acknowledge the divinity of the Old Testament in its original form. So why would it be a problem to follow the laws that say thou shalt not steal, etc.? I mean, unless you're saying that we're all going to have to honor the Sabbath and not drive a car on Saturday, because that is the literal interpretation of the Holy Scripture. Although we are being forced to drive at 20 miles an hour, which is almost like not driving at all, isn't it? Well, Jav is saying, do you have any proof to support your assertions? Not really. Does anyone? I don't even know if that question was directed at me. Captain is saying, what are your thoughts on the evangelist and Armageddon? Well, Armageddon is the great war, the final battle at the end of time. And many religions believe in some concept of a great battle. And I suppose if we live long enough, there will be a big enough battle to end it all, won't there? Eventually, if we don't live as long as the sun growing to engulf the whole earth, that's a different way that the world could end. And Stuart's pointing out that the 10 Commandments were given to Moses, not Noah. That's true. So why is it not called the Mosaic Law? Why do they go on about the Noahide laws? C-Bond is saying it's all the same God either way, just different interpretation. If anything, we're probably all wrong about the nature of God. Well, if you believe that God is unknowable, then you're probably barking up the right tree. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight, whatever time it is, in whatever country you are throughout the world. Like I say, if you would enjoy doing this again, we will do so, God willing, and we'll put we can listen to someone else, not just me. This has been Lessons for Life, and it's been a pleasure. Morpheus 1, I'm seeing your post. That's the first one I've seen, and I don't know about the others. We'll do it all again soon. We were here, and we are gone. Laters. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you very much. Salam.